Review of Avengers Endgame. I'm wearing my Iron Man shirt just for the occasion. So Avengers Endgame, the soon-to-be top-grossing movie of all time. It's going to beat Avatar. I believe. It's already beat Titanic. But yeah, here's my review in case you somehow haven't already seen it, since it seems like everyone in the world has already seen it. It's really good. I didn't like it quite as much as Infinity War for reasons I'll get into. It's hard to even talk about the movie without spoiling it because the trailers were so vague. I'll say this. Almost everything in the trailers is like first act material. There's definitely nothing from really late in the movie. Like, probably the last hour or so is completely not in the trailers. Because it's 3 hours long. And so let's talk about it being 3 hours long, because that's something I can do without spoiling. And I want to briefly give my thoughts before I verge into spoiler territory. I really liked the runtime. I think there were a few scenes that probably could have been cut. I've heard a lot of people say it was a little long, and I would agree. But I appreciated that the movie... I mean, it's rare that a blockbuster movie is allowed to be 3 hours long. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of times blockbuster movies get cut down, even when they're not 3 hours. Like, they can be 2.5, and somebody will cut them down a bunch. And then they're, like, they don't feel like a complete product. Like Venom. Now, they cut that one down to make it PG-13, but after watching Venom, I was like, I feel like there was another half hour of this movie that would have made it, like, better. But, so I really appreciate Marvel giving the Russo brothers the opportunity to make a 3 hour long movie that, you know, has time to get into each of the characters. Because Infinity War didn't really go too in-depth into most of the characters. It had a structure where Thanos was the protagonist, and everybody else were kind of like split antagonist. So that it only had time to really go in-depth into a few characters. Not that they didn't get their share of time, but like there was a lot more characters to show off, and they chose to focus on Thanos above all, which was a smart decision, and I think really helps Infinity War's structure. Endgame is more of your traditional superhero movie structure, with the classic Avengers team, plus, you know, some others. And that's a lot of the first part of the movie is just gathering those others, in the vaguest way I can say it. And like, the process of gathering those others gives the characters a lot of time to reflect, like, gives for a lot of great character moments. Iron Man has great character moments. Cap has great character moments. Cap was in, like, 2 scenes in Infinity War. He got super passed over. Ant-Man has some great moments. Nebula has more to do in this movie than she's ever had to do in any movie. I'm just gonna say that. Thor has great moments. All the original Avengers, including Hawkeye, get great moments. Hawkeye, who was never interesting before. Almost everybody gets, like, really good moments. And I appreciate that the movie was allowed to be 3 hours long and have time for those moments. That being said, there were probably a few of them, mostly more comedic ones that probably could have been cut. But at the same time, I don't know. The occasional lighthearted moment is nice in a movie where half of the people in the world are snapped away, everybody's all sad, you know. For the most part, it's a serious movie. It gets a little more comedic when they're on their mission, but, like, the setup, at least, is very serious. And, Captain Marvel is there. If you were worried about Captain Marvel taking over the movie, don't worry, she does not take over the movie. This is not her movie at all. She shows up and helps a couple times, and that's pretty much the extent of it. I don't even know if I can talk about anything else without saying spoilers. It's a very satisfying end to the arc of these movies so far. Like, I think Infinity War was a better movie because it had a more interesting structure that allowed it to not, like, drag or slow down anywhere. Endgame has a plot that is more prone to, like, plot holes and conveniences and, like, a bit of sluggishness because it's telling a more traditional superhero movie story but, like, having character moments, for me, having so many character moments, for me, elevates it above the other Avengers films outside of Infinity War. Like, I think it's easily better than Age of Ultron, and I don't even like the original Infinity War, the original Avengers very much. I don't like the original Avengers movie, really. So, yeah, I mean, if you somehow haven't already seen it, I'd recommend going to see it. I think there's a lot, there's so much in there for a Marvel fan. If you've ever been a fan of the MCU at all, of course you're going to see, you probably already have, so it doesn't even matter. If you're not a fan of the MCU, I mean, I think there's still something there. Take into consideration how many MCU movies you've seen before you go see it, because Infinity War was definitely easier to follow, like, without outside knowledge than Endgame is. Like, I can say that with confidence. But, like, if you're, I mean, I don't know, it's hard to even recommend this movie, because everybody who wants to see it has already seen it, I think. And everybody who is like, on it is probably gonna just wait until it comes out on DVD, unless one of their friends wants to go with them or something, I don't know. But, so, I'm just gonna talk spoilers now. I've already been talking for 7 minutes, that's long enough for a vague review. Spoilers. Okay, here we go. It's funny that I say it's a more traditional superhero story, because it's also, spoiler alert, this is going to be a minor one, a time travel movie. To put it lightly, this is also a time travel movie. If you don't want to know any more details than that, bail. Bail now, because I'm about to go in depth. The first act, it's actually very clever. I love how they do this. Basically, they're all like, we're going to go get Thanos, and we're going to get the stones, and we're going to beat him, and Captain Marvel shows up. She rescues Iron Man and Nebula from space. So that whole drama in the trailers of, oh no, Iron Man's trapped in space. That's like the opening scene of the movie. Well, not the opening scene. The opening scene is Hawkeye's entire family getting snapped away, which is just the biggest oof. Because it starts out so happy, he's like teaching his daughter how to shoot arrows, and you're just watching and you're like, they're all gonna die. Big sad. Big feels. And then the title card, though. It starts out with that scene before even showing the Marvel logo or any logos or anything. So I was sitting in the theater, and the lights dimmed, and I'm like, usually the lights dim and then the trailers play and then the movie starts, but I don't know if it was just the place I was at, but they didn't turn off all the lights until right before that opening scene. And then when the movie started, I was just like, wait, what? The movie's starting? I kind of thought we still had more trailers left, or like a Marvel logo or something. Like, it just starts. There's nothing before. Then after that scene, the normal logo stuff comes in. Although the Endgame title doesn't even come until even later. Anyway, Captain Marvel rescues Iron Man. They go to get Thanos. They go to his garden. This is all the stuff that was in that was in the trailers, pretty much. It was all just this part. And then Thanos is like, sorry, gamers, I used the stones to destroy the stones. There are no more stones. You ain't going back. And then Thor, aim for the head. Thor just bashes his head in, which is great. I was like, wait, what? Thanos is dead? What? What's happening? And that's like a brilliant, like, you expect it's going to be this big climactic superhero battle. There is a big climactic superhero battle, and we'll get to that. But for that opening, it's like, oh, this is different. All right, I'm into this. And then, after he kills Thanos, there's a 5 years later text box, and it waits a little bit before 5 years. So I see 5, I'm like, days, months? It can't be years, can it? And it shows years, and I'm like, Nani? 5 years later, everybody's all sad. Ant-Man finally gets rescued from the quantum realm because a rat happens to step on the controller for his little time thing. He comes out, he's like, what the heck's going on? Apparently he's only been in there for 5 hours. He goes to the Avengers place, he's like, I was only in there for 5 hours, but it was 5 years here. Time works differently in the quantum realm. We could time travel using the quantum realm. Stop Thanos. And all the other guys are like, and Cap and Black Widow are like, ooh, yeah, we could stop Thanos. And everybody's kind of gone their own separate ways, doing their own things. So they go to get Iron Man. Iron Man's got a kid now, which is, great. These are the starts of the character moments I'm talking about, are all in this 5 years later jump. It's like seeing how everybody has coped or not coped with the past 5 years. And of all of them, Iron Man is by far he comes out the happiest, which just made me, know he was gonna die. I'm like, he's gonna die. He's the only one who's, remotely happy in this post-snap world, so he's gonna die. So he's got a daughter with Pepper Potts, and at first he's like, I don't want anything to do with your time travel nonsense, bye. But then he figures out that it works in a kind of a dumb scene where he's just talking to his computer thing, and he's like, science mumbo jumbo, Mobius strip, show me the diagram, and then it shows a diagram of a Mobius strip and is 100% confirmed working, and he's mind blown. But nobody in the audience, including, I don't think the writers understand what it is that he's mind blown about either. They just had him say a bunch of time travel-y, Mobius strip, science-y mumbo jumbo, and then have the computer system figure it out for him. I don't know. I thought that was kind of dumb, but ultimately it didn't really matter. He figures out time travel. He has a really sweet scene with his wife where she's like, go ahead, you can do it. He doesn't want to undo those 5 years, which creates a whole nother thing that I didn't expect. I expected there'd be time travel, and I expected they were just going to undo everything right up until the snap, and then the MCU would carry on as normal. I assumed somebody would die in the process, but I didn't expect a 5-year time jump, and I didn't expect that 5-year time jump to stick. Because it does stick. Like glue. Like sticky Thanos glue. I don't know what I'm saying. So they try to get Hulk to help them with the time travel. Hulk's got an interesting thing going on here where he's fused the two versions of himself, so he's a Bruce Banner Hulk mix, and he dabs. Hulk dab. Oh yeah. Hulk dab. I can't dab and hold the camera at the same time. Whatever. My favorite part of this movie is that Thor plays Fortnite and Hulk dabs is a legitimate spoiler. Because they go to get Thor once they figured out the time travel, and Iron Man's like, alright, I'll help you time travel. And Thor's a fat neckbeard living in this new Asgard community that the remaining Asgardians built, and he's hanging out with Korg, the rock dude from Thor Ragnarok, and Korg's sitting there playing Fortnite on the couch, and then he's like, hey Thor, this kid's yelling at me in the game again, and Thor takes the comms and he's like, new Master 69, I'm going to kill you. And then the kid runs off or something, I don't know. And then so they have to get Thor. But that's part of it. It's fun to see how these characters, Thor dealt with the situation by becoming a fat slob and drinking a bunch and avoiding all his problems, which he was hurt the most by, because you can see, I like that he's in this new Asgard town, because he feels like he failed his people, right? Because in Thor Ragnarok, he had to rush all the people in his, perfect God City planet out of the planet. Then he flies them through space. Thanos attacks, wipes out half of them, almost kills Thor. Then they all get snapped, and they make sure to state this in the movie, I'm pretty sure, that half of them got killed by Thanos, and then half of that half got snapped. So now there's a fourth of the Asgardians left, living in this little fishing town in Norway, and poor Thor just feels like he's failed his people. So there's like, I mean, the fat Thor thing is funny, but it's also like he's clearly like messed up. And there's a lot of that going around. Like, Hawkeye becomes like a vigilante. That with the scene where they go and recruit him is crazy because it's like he's like really violent. Like he's like slicing dudes up with swords, pushing the limits of PG-13. I know they're making all these Disney Plus TV shows with the sort of tertiary characters in the MCU. I want a Hawkeye Ronin show set in those 5 years, because I guess his like vigilante name is like Ronin or whatever. I don't know. I want a show about vigilante Hawkeye set in those 5 years between the Snap and Endgame. That sounds like a super cool TV show, because we didn't really get to see much of his vigilantiness. There's that one shot in the trailer of him standing over a body with a sword and a weird haircut. That's pretty much all we get of that Hawkeye before he joins the Avengers group, and we're gonna save everybody. So here's their mission to save everybody. Ant-Man calls it a time heist, and that's a great way to describe it. I really enjoyed the first Ant-Man because it was essentially a heist movie. I enjoy heist movies a lot. And I enjoy time travel movies a lot. So the whole second act of the movie is their time heist. And for me, that was the highlight of the movie. I've heard some people say that they basically go back to where different Infinity Stones were, Marvel's greatest hits and less greatest hits, Thor the Dark World highlights, to find where the stones were in their history and pluck them and use them, take them back to the present and use them. And I really liked that part of the movie. Some say it was kind of like, I mean, it's kind of fan servicey because you're going back to these other movies, and that's where I think for somebody who hasn't followed the MCU, things could get kind of confusing, because like I follow it, and even I couldn't remember some things. Like Thor and Rocket Raccoon go back to the time period of Thor: The Dark World to get the Reality Stone, I think, and I was just like, frick, dude, I don't remember Thor: The Dark World. They have a funny scene where Thor drunkenly explains the, like, basic plot of Thor: The Dark World, because they know the audience won't remember. Because that movie was so long ago, and it's such a forgettable movie. One of the most forgettable movies in the MCU. But there was still some of it I didn't get. Like, he was like, I want to see my dead mom while I'm here. And I was like, wait, how did his mom die? I don't remember. I don't remember what happened in this movie. The time travel segments also have some fun cameos of old characters. Like, they got back Natalie Portman, the girl who played Thor's, like, girlfriend in the first two Thor movies. She's in, like, one scene and she doesn't talk. So, it's like, clearly they're like, please come back. Okay, fine, I'll do, like, 5 minutes of shooting, and she gets out of a bed. That's her. I don't know. They probably could have just gotten away with filming someone who looked like her from the back, and just avoided showing her face. That's what I thought they were gonna do, because like I figured they wouldn't be able to get her back. But they've got some, like, Robert Redford's there. He was the villain in Winter Soldier. He shows up. Loki. Howard Stark, Agent Carter, who else? Oh yeah, Tilda Swinton, the monk lady from Doctor Strange. There's a lot of fun character cameos as they're hopping back through time. They have 3 destinations. They go to New York because Black Widow realizes, wait, if we go to the right point, there's 3 stones in New York. So they go to New York. Loki has one of them or 2 of them. I don't know. That was kind of unclear to me. I know the Tesseract's one of them, but I guess Loki's spear had a different one. I don't care. They go there. Doctor Strange's stone is there too. Of course, Doctor Strange isn't yet the Doctor Strange we know. So Hulk basically goes and gets that one all by himself and has a little meeting with the monk lady who's like, if you pluck the Infinity Stones from our timeline, we're all gonna die. And he's like, but what if I return the stones here after we're done with them? And she's like, okay, that'll work. Here's my stone. Meanwhile, Iron Man and Ant-Man and Cap are like basically infiltrating the finale of the original Avengers movie. They come in like right after the plot of that movie would have ended, and so they get some good comedy out of seeing the characters be really casual and like, oh great, the bureaucracy's here to clean up everything we did. And most of the bureaucracy guys are Hydra, so that creates my favorite scene in the movie. When Cap gets into the elevator with all the Hydra dudes that he beat up in Winter Soldier in the elevator, the same thugs, because he's trying to get the case from them, the briefcase from them that has one of the stones in it, I think. And I thought he was gonna have to fight them, right? But he's just like, no, I've been ordered by the secretary, the villain from Winter Soldier, to take the briefcase from here. And then he leans over to Agent Sitwell guy, and goes, "Hail Hydra." And then they just give him the briefcase, and he walks out with this smug look on his face as they're all like staring at him like, really? He's Hydra? Great. They made fun of the comics arc where Captain America is Hydra. That I mean, I don't read comics, but I know because it's kind of a meme. Captain America saying "Hail Hydra," and they reference that really cool elevator fight scene in Winter Soldier. So that was my favorite part of the movie, like a great double whammy there. Plus, I just enjoyed seeing those old characters again. But then they fail to get one of the stones because Hulk is mad about stairs. It's kind of a lot to explain, but Loki gets away with that stone, which is like, maybe that's... I know they're going to do a Loki TV show or something. Maybe that's how they do it on the Disney Plus thing. It's that Loki. So then they go back even further. They're like, okay, we need to get this stone. We got to go back further. So they go back to the, 60s and that's where Tony meets Howard Stark, gets to talk to his dad for a little while, and it's like, oh, cool. It's a cool moment. Not really much happens there, though, outside of, character moments, and I do think the time heist plotline in general, well, I'll get into this after okay. So then there's Thor's group that goes to the plot of Thor: The Dark World, obviously. I mentioned that. I pretty much explained that already. And then Gamora, and then and then there's the space crew. Hawkeye and Black Widow go to get the Soul Stone, the one Thanos had to sacrifice Gamora for, and once again, somebody has to be sacrificed. If there's one thing that always kills people in this MC universe, it's the Soul Stone. They even established this, we can't undo this, not even if we get the stones. This time it's Black Widow, and there's a great scene where Hawkeye and Black Widow are basically fighting each other to see who can fall off the thing first. Oh, so sad. I guess now, I know we're getting a Black Widow movie at some point. I guess that's going to be her origin story, so we see her origin before or after we see the entire rest of her MCU presence. Hopefully that movie has Hawkeye in it too and kind of explores their relationship, because I still don't quite get... I know they have a history, but their history isn't fully explained. So that's a sad scene. They come back from their time travel shenanigans, and they're all mourning that. And then the last group is Nebula and War Machine for some reason. I think they just didn't know where to put War Machine. It's weird that he's even still he's still kind of just there in the MCU. He's always been kind of just there. He got wounded in Civil War. I was like, they could have just killed him off in Civil War, honestly. Nobody would have really missed him. He's not anyone's favorite Avenger. I don't even know if he technically is an Avenger. He's like C-team dude. But he didn't get snapped, so he was there to help. Captain Marvel wasn't there for any of the time heist stuff. So that's what I mean when I say she's not taking over the movie. I was like, is she even going to come back? For a while, I thought she just wasn't going to come. I'm like, she has to come back, right? That can't be all of her that was in the movie. She does come back in the third act, which I suppose now we'll get into. There's a third act past this time heist, and it's an epic battle sequence. Wasn't as big into the epic battle sequence as I was into the time heist, to be honest. I I think the time heist was something different. The battle sequence was cool. And I mean, they had to have it, right? It's like the finale of these 22 movies. You gotta get all the characters in there and just have them fighting. Like, every character that has ever been relevant ever in any of these movies just shows up and does battle. But I kind of wish the time heist portion had been a little bit longer. Maybe they run into more conflicts, like the Loki taking the stone thing, and less of the, like, smaller moments, you know? Maybe they have a little bit more trouble getting all the stones, because they get the stones easily, and they snap everybody back into existence easily. But then Thanos follows them from the past, because Nebula, like, past Nebula and present Nebula got all synced when they time traveled back there, and so Thanos found out, and then Nebula replaced the other Nebula. Evil Nebula replaced our Nebula, and came back to our time, and then turned on the time machine, and somehow brought Thanos' entire army to the present, which, okay, I guess, battle time. I kind of felt like I had to turn my brain off for the epic battle sequence, because it's like, alright, this is, I mean, you know, it's what it is. It's the superhero battle fight to end all superhero battle fights. I really don't see how they can top it, honestly, in terms of just spectacle. But that's what it is, a lot of spectacle. The rest of the movie was a lot of substance. That part was spectacle. Which is fine. I mean, it is what it is. That's what these movies are, a lot of them. And I enjoyed it. I wasn't like, oh, a superhero battle. It just wasn't quite as interesting as the other stuff. And the time heist stuff was so fun that I would have gladly had that go on longer and just had the final fight be shorter, but, you know, that's just me. And then, of course, we talk about the end, where Iron Man snaps and dusts Thanos' whole army, and he's like, I am inevitable, Thanos says, and he snaps, and then he's like, wait, where are my power stones? They're not in my gauntlet. They're in my gauntlet, Iron Man. I am Iron Man, and he snaps. And then the stones, like, they wear down your body. They even wore down Thanos' body when you saw him in the beginning of the movie. So, Iron Man's dead. Iron Man had to sacrifice himself to be able to use the stones in that crucial battle moment. Captain Marvel comes back in that battle as well. She, like, blasts his spaceship and does a big blow. Almost gets Thanos. Thanos pulls this really sick maneuver where Captain Marvel's, like, ramming on him, and she's really strong. He headbutts her, it does nothing. He pushes her with the gauntlet, it does nothing. So he's like, wait, hold on. So he takes one of the stones out of the gauntlet and just shoves the stone in her face with his other hand. That was a brilliant maneuver. He never even thought of doing that in the other movie, just taking the stones out of the gauntlet. And neither did the Avengers, apparently. They kept trying, like, that's essentially how Iron Man beats him, is he takes the stones out of his gauntlet and somehow puts them in his gauntlet at the same time. He takes the stones out of Thanos' gauntlet and puts them in his Iron Man suit gauntlet that they make. Which, I don't know, it's kind of weird because Infinity War was like they had to make like a specially made gauntlet, and it was much harder to take the stones out, but that's just nitpicking. Who cares? I don't know. You could nitpick this movie a lot. There's a lot more to nitpick than there is in Infinity War, I think, because of how complicated it is. It's a time travel story, so that creates inevitable complications. If you go in with a negative attitude, you can find plenty of things to nitpick and come out saying it was a trash movie. Probably more than you could in Infinity War. And that's part of where I come from, where it's not quite as good as Infinity War, because Infinity War has just such tight plotting. But anyway, Iron Man dies. They have this funeral scene for him, which is sad. Cap is a weird one. He travels back to return the stones, and then he, like, doesn't come back. But then he does. He's an old man. He basically goes and lives his life in the 60s that he wanted to live with Agent Carter. And then he comes back, and then he's there, and he's an old man, and he gives Falcon his shield. His buddy Sam, the Falcon guy. Now he's Captain Falcon. Falcon Punch! I kind of would have liked it. Basically, he doesn't come back in their time machine, and they're all like, what? And then one of them looks over, and he's like, because he sees old Cap. And they don't show you what he's looking at until after his reaction. I thought it would have been kind of cool if instead of straight up being old Cap, it was like a gravestone. Like Captain America, 1960 whatever through 2012. I don't know. And it's just like... I mean, then it would be harder for him to give Falcon his shield, but I don't know. I feel like you could just have the shield, like, leaning on the gravestone or something. It would be you could nitpick that, but it would, like, thematically work. Having Cap come back kind of puts into question a lot of the things they established about time travel, which is basically that, like, each change they make creates another universe. But I didn't really care. I was like, that's kind of a weird way to write Cap out, but at the same time I like that he got to live a full life into old age. Both Iron Man and Cap got to go exactly the way that they would have wanted to go. Iron Man got to be a hero, redeem his loss of Peter, because that's what he was upset about for the whole movie. He's like, I failed that kid. He got to have a kid of his own, and, like, yeah, she's gonna grow up without a dad, but... she and everyone else knows that dad is My phone ran out of recording space. Now I'm gonna have to do much more work, such as editing these things together. Dang, I was almost done, too. Whatever. Thor joins the Guardians of the Galaxy, which is... I mean, I appreciate that, because I felt like Thor Ragnarok was just a less fun Guardians movie. Like a Guardians movie with Thor. And putting him with the Guardians is a way smarter strategy. I can't wait for Guardians 3 now. My hype for Guardians 3 just shot up, dude. Hulk, I don't know. Hulk does his Hulk thing. Everybody kind of does their own thing. Ultimately, a really satisfying ending. Iron Man and Cap get their heroes' endings. Thor gets to join the Guardians and start a whole new phase. Spider-Man's coming up soon. Everybody gets to continue their movie sagas, but it feels like this story that was built up since the first Avengers has come to a very satisfying end. While I don't think the movie is as well put together as Infinity War, it's a case of the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, for sure. And the whole is a 22-movie crazy cinematic universe thing that has never been done before and will never be done again, because I don't see DCEU or any of these other movie universes being able to connect everything and put so many movies together on such a scale and have none of them be bad. Because in my opinion, none of the MCU movies are truly bad. Some of them are bland or forgettable or kind of vanilla, boring. That's the worst any of them are. Like, yeah, you can say that's bad, but I mean, that's bad for, like, superhero standards now. Look at something like the Green Lantern movie that came out in, like, 2010 or whatever. That is a bad superhero movie. That is a really bad superhero movie. Nothing in the MCU is anywhere close to that level of bad. So yeah, there was one more thing I wanted to say. I'm interested to see how this impacts the MCU going forward, because I did not... Like, the 5-year time gap sticks. There's a scene where Spider-Man where Peter Parker reunites with his friend at school, and it's like, well, wait, aren't half of your classmates now 5 years older out of high school, and the other half are your age? And you're going to have a bunch of new classmates that were 5 years younger than you, because all the people that were brought back didn't age those 5 years. So there's like half of the population that have aged 5 years, and then there's, like, things like, I don't know, if somebody killed themselves because, I don't know, their baby got snapped or something, and then the baby comes back and there's no mom. Like, there's tons of... They're not going to address most of this. That's what I wish these TV shows, rather than focusing on specific side characters like they're planning to do, just show us how the world has been infected by the snap. Because they go into it a little bit, but they don't spend that much time on it, and both the snap and people coming back from the snap are huge societal things that would totally, like, mess with everything. I'd like to see some exploration of how that works. Maybe Spider-Man Far From Home will give some lip service to that. It would be cool if there are characters in Spider-Man Far From Home that are like new characters that are like his buddies at school that are now his age that were maybe 5 years younger before. I don't know. There's a lot you can do with it. Multiple universes, which if you've seen the latest Spider-Man Far From Home trailer, they're hinting at. I don't know. I'm excited. I was kind of feeling Marvel MCU movie fatigue around Thor Ragnarok, but Infinity War got me invested again. Endgame kept me invested, even though Ant-Man and the Wasp and Captain Marvel were kind of forgettable. And, you know, I still haven't seen Spider-Man Homecoming, so I really need to watch that before I see Spider-Man Far From Home. It's not on anything. It's probably because it's Sony rights nonsense, but, like, all the other MCU movies are on Netflix right now. Eventually they won't be, but, like, they're all on Netflix. They're all available to download, rent, that kind of thing. Even, like, we still have, like, cable at my house, and there's, like, renting stuff on demand. You can rent the other movies. Spider-Man you have to buy for, like, $20. And it's like, I don't even see it. It's, like, and it's not on Netflix. It's not on any streaming services or anything, because Sony is dumb and bad. Like, Sony, what are you doing? I don't know. That's a random tangent that has nothing to do with this movie. I'd recommend you go see it. Again, if you're an MCU fan, you probably already have, and I just explained the entire plot. So if you're not, why are you still here if you're not? You've already seen it. I love you 3000. Arrivederci, gamer.